hello. We did a film.
Yes, we did.
If you haven't seen it yet, what the fuck are you doing? No, go and watch it. Go and watch it first. For those wondering, we're recording in the Brighton rain, so if you're hearing some atmospheric sort of drip drops of rain,
it's nice. It's deep.
It's calming and
it's
intentional.
A nice, deep conversation.
You said that Chris was the only one you considered for the role. How did you ask him, and how did he respond? I remember starting to write it very much having you in mind, and then I kind of got excited and was like, I just want to keep writing this, because it was like coming really naturally, but I was like, I really ought to talk to Chris about this before going too deep into it.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think the first thing I said was I texted you asking if you'd ever done stand-up before. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that? And like...
Yeah, and I've done a few little bits, but not like full stand-up stuff.
Right. I got the sense that you were a little bit hesitant when we first started talking about it and first got the scripts and stuff.
I guess when I was reading it, it was very you, and that made me think, well, it feels like, I don't know, that you should be doing it. It was also like, it's a bisexual guy doing the stand-up, and it felt like, I don't know, very similar to, it wasn't as if I was playing a massive, like, different character. I wasn't going to have to do research or anything, because I'm doing all that now, so it was just very kind of, I couldn't really picture myself doing it.
Well, it's
but I mean, that worry only lasted like half a day.
Right. Well, no, I feel like we chatted about it a lot, and we eventually kind of found it. Because that's the funny thing, is it's like, I think whilst it's a character that I would say is close to both of us, I definitely don't think it's me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a much more charismatic version and a much more kind of articulate version than I sort of hope to be.
Yeah, and I suppose that's kind of why I was kind of worried about it, because, like, I don't do a lot of the acting type stuff, so I'm always very worried, like, am I going to do it how you want it to be? So yeah, it's personal stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And that's tricky.
Yeah,
because you want to do it right.
Absolutely.
I think I did. Did I do it? Did I do okay?
Well, we'll get to that. Okay. Yes, very much so.
Thank you. Yeah,
that did make it sound like I was really unhappy.
Validation.
Yeah, it definitely made it sound like I was like, we'll talk about that. Not quite. Michael Markman Mikula asked, the stand-up is very strong.
Yes.
How did you and Chris and Mike and Jacob, who I don't think you even spoke to at all, but we'll get to that, work on that? How far was it from the kind of final script? I'd written a lot of material that I quite liked, and I was like, I think there's a joke in here, there's something in this. Like, it wasn't fully formed, but I was like, I think there's a joke to be found in there, or something like that. And then, sort of over a few pints, me and the Truman twins, we just kind of punched it up a bit, basically. And they're very, very funny guys. They've both done a lot of stand-up themselves. So, like, I think they were able to kind of like tighten it a little bit and kind of find those extra little jokes, and we kind of spitballed it. But then what was really interesting, I remember talking to you and saying, like, when you're reading this as a script, that's going to be the deadest it's ever going to feel, because it's just written down on a piece of paper, which is inherently is like kind of in conflict, because I remember you and I saying a lot, like, some of the best stand-up, even if you know deep down that every word of it is meticulously written.
Oh yeah.
It still feels...
It's got to sound like it's kind of, not improvised, but like you're seeing it as they're thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if that's totally false, like, even if that's not true at all, it needs to feel like that, so that it's not just someone reading a monologue.
Yeah.
And that was what was so tough about writing it. I wrote it out, but very much under the understanding that I think the next thing we did is, like, almost then deconstruct that and turn that into bullet points. And it it was more like, right, this is this joke, this is roughly the mechanics of it, next joke. And then once you had that, I think you then really shifted and changed it, and like...
Yeah, because I suppose I don't have a very good, like, memory for remembering the lines, so I suppose when we bullet pointed it, I had to try and get to the joke and explain it how I would have done it on stage, as I'm trying to find it, and I guess that gave it a bit more of a natural.
I'd say so, yeah, because when we were rehearsing it, I remember the first like read of it was very much like a word for word just like,
Yeah.
here it is. And I remember thinking like, ooh, okay. Like, luckily we did a lot of rehearsals, but like, I remember that very, very first read thinking like, okay, this definitely isn't right yet. Like, I'm confident that it will get there, but I remember just thinking like, okay, this isn't right. Why is this not right yet? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
And was it because it felt too like it was a script?
correct. And it felt like you were making sure you hit
Yeah.
each mark in a way that didn't feel very natural. And I think as soon as we broke it down into bullet points and you found your own flow and like, I think you brought then a lot of Chris isms to it, like a lot of like your comedic trademark beats to
Trademarks.
trademark, yeah, registered trademark. Don't come for them. I think it was then that you were kind of able to sort of make it feel like you were the one creating this.
Yeah, and that was when we started having quite a lot of fun with it.
Yeah,
we were
very much so.
We were pissing ourselves laughing.
Yeah.
But that was the kind of worry, I think,
Right.
of what I was talking about. Is like when you give me a script, I don't want to do it. I want to make sure it's exactly how you want it. So it's like I'll read this exactly how it is. Like I'll say every single word that you've written. But when I suppose to make it into stand up, we had to kind of play with it and see what happens.
And I think that was the big difference between the backstage and the onstage. You know, like
backstage was the easier part. I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. Did you find that easier?
I think so. Just because we know exactly kind of what beats we're going to try and get. We know what I'm trying to get across. Whereas like trying to make an audience laugh.
Yeah.
Is a very like different beast.
Right. And I remember
Chaos.
There was stuff we were adding in like the night before the performance. Like we would just, you'd be doing something and then you'd kind of go down a certain road and it would be like, oh fuck, that's really funny. Let's throw a bit of that in.
That can go on forever though. I think we did have to put
that's true.
a finish to it.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, it's also you were explaining that we almost go into that point where we're kind of joking on top of the joke and then we've lost the original joke and it's no longer anything. It's just something that we found funny.
You almost need to kind of be quite disciplined with the material, and whilst there's space to like throw a few sprinkles on there, the moment that you then get too used to that and you're like, and now we need a load of whipped cream, but now I'm too used to that, so now I need chocolate sprinkles on top of that, and then a cherry, and then honey, and then chocolate. Like, suddenly it's like you're not having a hot chocolate anymore. Like, it's this...
So, hold on. So, is it... We've still got a pudding? Or has that gone...
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
It's it becomes a creamy, sugary mess by the end, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think, like, that whilst it's good to keep it, like, fresh and exciting, I think that the moment you're, like, constantly trying to re-evolve what it is to always be funny to us specifically, you kind of lose the clarity of that vision and I keep using lots of metaphors here, but like the nice little sphere becomes a bit bumpy and it becomes a bit lopsided. Were there any specific comedians that inspired you to explore the stand-up format? And I would say it was that Eddie Izzard thing we were watching particularly.
Because I just happened to be watching a whole box set of Eddie Izzard. I think there's like 8 discs in a box set somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was working through that, I think, even before you'd asked me to do anything.
Okay.
So I was kind of inspired by that, but it kind of was what we wanted, what we needed to watch, because
100%.
he's like famously known as like everybody watching Eddie Izzard thinks it's kind of off the top of his head, but of course it's so well structured and stuff. So we kind of watched a lot of that and we're just giggling away and trying to... Because he's so natural. Like, I think he's the most natural, I think.
It was funny because we watched an episode and it like almost purely coincidentally happened to be like one of his most kind of known acts. Like it was the whole Le Singe sur le bus kind of bit, but then also the joke that I fucking love of his is like you can tell that Hitler never played Risk. Because like, there's no way you can take all of Asia. I was just like, that's always stuck out to me, and like, it just happened to be like one of his best ones. And there was so many fun. He had this whole extended bit about saying that someone had passed away just before the show had started, and then was playing with the audience's expectations as to whether that was true or not. Yeah. And he'd kind of keep dismissing it and going, "No, obviously I'm joking." And then he goes, No, but it is real. And it was constantly playing with them. And I think there was a lot of little things like that we really liked. With like giving the audience an expectation and taking that away. Because, like, for example, we had that by and large joke, but then I was like, I think you should frame it as, like, instantly going in with a weird pitch for an audience just to get there. Like, I'm going to start with a bad joke. It's such a weird way to start a stand-up act, but it instantly gets your attention because you're like, wait, why? Like, why is that? And then suddenly there's some weird obligation to my manager told me not to do it, but I'm going to, it kind of builds in this thing. And then I think you were very much the one that threw in the, like, I don't have a manager. Like again, it kind of added this whole other dynamic. But I think Eddie, if I had to pin it down to one, I'd say Eddie Izzard was really the one we were watching sort of right in the lead up to like going.
Did you watch anyone when you were writing it?
So funnily enough, I actually watched a lot of like LGBT specific stand up.
Yeah, to see how they
do it,
right,
and some of it is really great, and some of it is rubbish. Like some of it I really didn't like, and I know that sounds like mean, but
why was it rubbish?
It made me realise what I didn't want to do. Some people were incredible. Like, some people really, really, like, made it work. And others, I think, spoke in quite a condescending way. Like, spoke in a way where, without meaning to, and I don't think this was done maliciously, but just the way they would position themselves was as if they were, like, talking down to their audience a little bit.
Okay,
and raising themselves up. So it was suddenly like, this is how you must treat me, which is totally fair in the context of like actual proper discourse about how we go about these things. But it made me realise very quickly, like, actually, I think the audience should feel very much almost like above the comedian.
Always, yeah, that's how it should be.
Right, and that like there's a self-deprecation, but there's also, I think, and it was a key thing when writing it, was I want to talk to an audience where I'm not trying to convert them. I'm not trying to say, but no, it is fine to be bi, like, and here's why. It was like, I'm going to allow you to accept that very quickly, and I'm just going to keep talking to you, and kind of be self-deprecating to myself, and I'm not going to be like, now here's how I should be treated. You know what I mean? It's like
because then it's like a, what do they call it, like a PSA, isn't it? It's it's definitely that thing where you want the audience to be above the comedian, and if they're gonna start with a lecture, right, it doesn't matter how right they are.
Absolutely,
the comedy stand-up format is very. It's kind of not really the place for it.
Exactly.
But there is the place for talking about sexuality.
That's exactly it. What was your initial purpose for this film, and how did you want it to impact viewers? I think it's fair to say I really don't know that I've seen many like bisexual characters, let alone like male bisexual characters in media, like period. Like, I think Captain Jack Harkness from Doctor Who is like,
because that's old now.
Yeah, right.
That's getting old.
And like, yeah, exactly. Like it's been a while, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, I guess there is an angle of this that is like this could be valuable to someone else, and I think that is something that gets acknowledged. Like, it's like. It's kind of a self-acknowledgement that it's never something I've like chosen to talk about that much, but it's as much about talking about it, for me at least, as it is sort of why I haven't chosen to talk about it and why maybe now is the right time to talk about it, but also not wanting it to be the defining feature of.
No, because also you were making sure that it has to be personal, so it's like your story, your kind of like bisexual thoughts. If you kind of researched loads of other stuff, then it's something else. It's like your personal kind of entry point, I suppose.
Yeah, and it was nice I bounced it off a few sort of writer friends of mine who are also bites, like Connie and Melanie and Dodie all gave it a read, and like it seemed to sort of register with them as well, which cool. kind of made me go, okay, I feel like I'm not, like I'm kind of not being too isolated with this, because there's an interesting there's an expression I really love. I think Travis Knight said it once, which was writing is very paradoxical in that the more personal you make it, the more universal it becomes. And I really like that. There's something
cool.
about a really personal detail that weirdly everyone will then kind of weirdly connect to that.
It seems like a lot of people have connected to it in the comments. I know I was reading through. There was definitely a lot of this is me type comments, which is that must be very satisfying to see.
I suppose so, and especially because I wasn't trying to do that. I wasn't trying to make sure I scooped up everyone's experience.
Yeah,
not to say that I've scooped up everyone's experience, but like for example, like the Spider-Man anecdote, it is very grounded in legitimately how I kind of like had a lot of self-realizations, and like, you know, that very specific detail, a lot of people in the comments and stuff have been like, dude, for me it was this film, or like, you know, like it was this.
Yeah.
So like, again, it's that kind of interesting paradox of like very personal sometimes becomes more universal. So I guess that was kind of the intention with the film, but at the same time, I also wanted, and this was like a big thing, and I know you and I talked about this a lot, was like trying to mix that balance of talking about what could be quite a serious subject, but also should kind of inherently also be a very funny, silly subject. Because it's like, I think that the inherent, like, understandable problem is that, like, a lot of conversations around sexuality or gender, all those kind of things, tend to be very serious, and it's a consequence of the fact that there are a lot of horrible people out there who will be judgmental and abusive and nasty as a consequence of them. But if we did live in a world where that shit wasn't there, which is unfortunately not where we live, there's something quite silly and fun about it, you know, especially sexuality. Like, it's like, you're talking about who you want to pork. Like, it's like, you know what I mean?
I suppose so, yeah.
Like, there's something kind of fun about it. Like, it's sad that it has to be taken seriously so much, because it does have to be taken seriously a lot. And yet it's like, okay, let's try and find a spot where we can enjoy the silliness of it.
Yeah, and I suppose that's how you give people watching like something they can relate to, especially if they're bisexual.
Right.
Because, I don't know, he's not up there defending his rights or anything. That you're moving past that bit and getting to more funnier personal stuff. So I mean, it could have been a lot more preachy, couldn't it? And then, I don't know, you might have got like pats on the back for being, you know, talking about rights and stuff, but then it wouldn't have been very human, would it? Because I think everybody's stories are a bit different. So
both you and I come from a very comedic kind of comedy background, and so I think for us, like, our more authentic version of that, like our more sincere version of that, isn't to do a big sloppy drama where the protagonist, like, at the end commits suicide or something, you know, like, because that's the kind of cliche, isn't it, of like that kind of thing. I think what feels more authentic, I found, to both of us, was to see it through the comedic route. I mean, I remember a video a long time ago you made where you mentioned that you were bi, and like, the way you phrased it was so offhanded, but it was just like, but don't worry, I'm not too boring, I am bisexual. So it was just, and it was like, it was such a silly little offhand comment, but it was just like, I loved that way of approaching it, like that, just like, yeah, it is what it is. Kind of thing.
I think that's the thing with doing, when I mention it in my videos, is I can mention it the way I wish everybody else mentioned it, where it was just part of everyday kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris, have you ever done or considered doing?
Yes, I have. A lot of times, actually.
Stand up. Does that appeal to you, or do you prefer acting?
I have done bits of stand-up.
Yeah, because I want to ask you about this, because I remember you specifically saying, I've done some stand-up, but it's mainly me acting as Colin Firth.
Well, this is the problem, because
I didn't ask you about it at the time, but...
The thing is, with stand-up, is I have tried to do stand-up where you kind of, you go up and it's very much, especially if you go with what's popular right now, is you go up and you talk about stuff that's happened to you. Whereas I really enjoy kind of performing characters or acting and stuff. So I found stand-up to be quite difficult. But then I had a kind of a mini breakthrough when I decided I'm just going to go up as Colin Firth tonight. Basically, I'm going to give everyone an acting lesson. I'm sorry, I am in the wrong building, but let's do it anyway. And I gave the audience, I mean, that's not even a good impression.
No,
I gave the audience, like, an acting thing, and that went down well.
Yeah.
But what I found was, like, it's also really scary and very, like, there's a lot of adrenaline going on. So I didn't really continue, because it was also kind of, I don't know, you have to kind of, with stand-up, you have to find all the gigs and you have to
Right,
go
yes,
get 5
yes.
minutes up in Northampton
Right.
somewhere. I still do like little things, and I want to kind of keep going with it because
You've
it's
been
the
doing
most
it in
fun ever.
Brighton a bit?
I've done little bits.
Okay.
Like 5-minute bits.
Okay.
And every time I've done it, it's been absolute chaos.
Okay.
Just because I'm not really like...
Good chaos?
Well,
Or-
yeah, good,
okay.
but in that way where like I come off and I say, there's no way I'm doing that again.
Right. But I mean,
So-
I guess like a character-based stand-up is like perfect because it's playing to your strength of like that kind of silly character acting, but also there's just an immediacy between. Because I always think that like you love doing the acty bit, but it's always the sitting and editing and the actual like making it and then having to face what you've done that always
Yeah.
puts you off.
Yeah, like...
So I guess there's an immediacy to that.
Definitely.
Is...
If I had an editor, I'd be
Right.
a millionaire.
This is a worthy investment for you to make.
If I didn't have
And
to
then it's
edit things, yeah,
You'd be
I'd have
making videos
1,000
every
videos. Or, yeah.
Get an editor then. No?
Nah.
Yeah. Right.
It costs money. Like Jack Howard, do you know how expensive he is?
I do. He edited this.
I know,
film.
yeah.
He's very good. He's very good. In the lead up to this, kind of felt like I couldn't really write about stand up without doing some stand up. Like I was like, I feel like if I'm going to write about it, I need to sort of know firsthand. So I did like a small handful of open mic nights, basically.
How many?
I think I did 3 or 4.
Okay.
The first one I ever did was like, it was like a kind of free event. You literally had like a minute or 2 on stage. Like it was super, super quick. And I just told an anecdote. Like I just told like a very simple anecdote. But it went really well. I was really happy with the response it got. And then each time, because I thought an anecdote's like a safe place to be. Because like
yeah.
it's got a beginning, a middle and an end. Like it's a satisfying story. Fine. But then as it went on, I tried to do more of the material actually in Bicycle. And like... It was tough. Like I enjoyed it. I think it got. I think there were kind crowds for sure, and I loved it. It was really fun. It made me realize how fucking nerve-wracking stand-up is. Like it made it because there's no barrier. Like I respect. Like I have a great respect for actors because they have to just have a raw sort of no boundary between them and the kind of camera or whatever it is. Then if you're stage acting, you haven't even got an editor, like you've got to go and do it on the night. Like I have mad respect for that. But a stand-up, they're in charge of the material, they're in charge, it's a one-person thing, like,
Yeah.
I respect it so much, and I have insane amounts of respect for anyone who can do it.
So was it useful then? Do you think?
Incredibly, yeah. Because the thing I realised, and we realised this then during rehearsals, was early on when I was thinking about how we'd shoot it, I was like, well, let's get Chris doing the stand-up, and then we can record an audience and edit that in and add it.
Okay.
And it made me realise so quickly, like, oh, no, the audience are the other character, you know? Like, and like, you can't just give it to nobody. You need that other actor to act off. Like, and yes, they're like one conglomerate group of laughter, but like, you don't have anything to bounce off if you don't have that audience, which is, early on I was like, oh Christ, we're going to have to sort of do this for real. Like, we're going to have to sort of do this in front of an audience, really, in order to give you what you needed. And I think we felt that during rehearsals, where, like, we'd do it and it would crack us. Like, we'd find it funny and it'd be good. But then someone else would come in, like Sylvia would come in and watch a bit. And suddenly it would get so much better. Like, suddenly, now that someone was actually laughing and having an authentic reaction to it, there was a confidence that came with that, and it was like, oh, okay, right, now I've got something to go off. When we were editing it, like when Jack and I were sat editing, like there were definitely moments where like you paused for a second, or like you took a second to think of your next line, or you'd be like, so yeah, and then you get back into the energy of it, and it wasn't anything awful. Like it was just like little imperfections just here and there, but I think they really added to the authenticity of it, and they kind of, you know, given that it is a character who, you know, is the first of 3 support acts before the main act, and, you know, like doesn't have an agent, he's kind of a, you know, like he's not a big well-known comedian.
Yeah, as a newbie.
Right, we were like, I think there's actually kind of a joy in seeing the maths a little bit, and seeing the rubbings, and seeing the animator's fingerprints on the Aardman, Wallace and Gromit stop motions.
Yeah.
Like you kind of like those little imperfections. So I think in the end that kind of added something in terms of the authenticity, and then having the much more controlled backstage stuff like really helped contrast the two.
I think without the audience, it would have been horrible. I think.
Yes, no, I totally agree.
I just got a bad feeling that's awful.
We did actually, didn't we record, like, there was one take, like, before the audience came in, we were like, let's just get one full run.
Like a safety take.
A safety
wasn't it?
one.
Yeah.
Didn't have to
No
use a
audience.
single shot of it. Like, didn't need to use it at all in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So there's
yeah.
no
Every
limit.
single one is authentically you on stage. To each of you, what was so appealing in wanting to work with one another?
Ooh.
So go on, be nice to me, please.
Well, I've worked with you loads already.
This is true. Yeah.
What have I
same.
worked with you on from the beginning?
From oh my goodness. All right, I could probably list them.
Yeah, from the top.
Okay, so you made a very brief cameo in Rocks That Bleed.
Oh
You were there
yeah.
for one scene. You are briefly in the musical thing we made, What Have We Done, with Tim H.
Yeah.
Those are like much smaller, not really. I wouldn't fully
That's
count
the first
those.
two, yeah.
Yeah, basically. And then we did Friend Like Me.
Friend
that
Like
was
Me,
like the
yeah.
first like proper time working together, I'd say. We did Playground together. And yeah, this Bicycle.
Yeah.
And am I missing anything?
I don't think so. There's probably like something really big.
Yeah, I'm really scared in case I'm like offending someone with some big thing with it.
No, I don't think there is. And I think for me it's just like I know what Sammy's about. I know what I'm getting myself into. So it's kind of it's comfortable because it's also like especially when being worried about making sure I get it right. Part of feeling like I'm going to give it a go and say yes was the fact that I know that we collaborate quite well. So it was also I could picture it and it was good. It was good. How did she phrase the question again? What was it?
What was so appealing? What was so
appealing
to want to work with one another?
I don't remember if I was particularly appealed.
Quite the opposite. Hey? I think we like to talk about it loads ahead of time and really like hammer out all the questions and different ideas and like see different perspectives on it and stuff. And then I feel like once we're sort of on set together, we've done the homework already. I think you have a lovely thing where you kind of have an idea of how you want to do it. You kind of bring it to the table, like you've kind of made a lot of decisions already, and you're like, yep, this is kind of how I'm envisioning that. But then I also think you have no ego when it comes to just like looking for notes and like trusting.
I think I'm always very conscious on film stuff is that it's quite a difficult technical expensive thing. So like I like to go mad. We'll come up with different things. We'll find different ways of doing it beforehand. But then when it's filming time, it's very much like let's just do what we got. I don't like the idea of saying like halfway through, what happens if I was like straight and like we'll just start. It's so bad.
I think we've got a good enough working relationship that when I'm giving notes, it's never, oh Chris, it's not working. It's always sort of like, let's get a slightly more frustrated version of that.
Yeah.
Let's get a slightly more optimistic version of that. Let's dial it this way a little bit, or dial it that way a little bit. It's never like, oh Chris, this bit's not working at all. Like what can we do about that?
What are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I think we have a very natural, good working dynamic. I think we have a very similar sense of what we find funny.
Which helps.
Which definitely helps for this kind of thing, yeah. So, no, pleasure. Are there any lines/scenes that you really liked but didn't make it to the final cut?
This is something I always forget. Like,
Yeah.
I watched it, and I probably don't remember.
Right.
Did we cut anything?
Yeah, there's a whole scene that got cut where you ascend into heaven, remember?
Oh, yeah.
that scene.
The wire work. Crouching Tiger wire work. Yeah, that was good.
We cut that.
Why did you cut that?
It just didn't feel fitting for this otherwise quite grounded stand-up act. No, there was one big bit that Jack convinced me to cut, which was like, it's the bit where you're talking about, it's something along the lines of like, you're talking about why you love stand-up so much, and you're like, I'm so not good at it yet, but like, when people get it right, they can build in all these.
And that's not in it.
It's not in it, because to me, Jack convinced me once I watched it that that's kind of implicit within the film itself.
Okay, so
Like-
it was the scene where I was going on about how stand-up is really an important thing. So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
and that I'm really into it. I suppose that
And
does
it's-
make sense, because
yeah.
that's kind of...
I think it's
guess
just
that
in
comes
there,
across
right.
in every part of that film.
It's the like show don't tell thing, you know, like it's just like it
Yeah.
felt a little bit like we were explaining the thesis of the film, and it was like we get it, like maybe you don't need to
Yeah.
line that out as much, and
It's-
like I think that's partly me just like almost doubting myself as a writer, being like, is that clear? I'll just make sure that they know it's clear. I want them to know that sometimes you put your feelings out there and stuff. And then Jack was the one that was just like, honestly, mate, like I think that can go. I don't think it needs to be.
I
in there.
find that kind of stuff though is really weirdly like satisfying though. When you've got a big chunky film, and if you get rid of something, that, especially if it's long,
Yeah.
and but everything's it's all still fine.
Yeah.
Maybe even moves a bit like smoother. There's something really nice about getting rid of like, I don't know, fat.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's why, and especially when you don't notice it's there.
Well,
and then
that's
suddenly
what
it's
I
like,
didn't
right,
notice
I'm gonna-
it. I watched it. I didn't
Right,
notice it was
you didn't
gone.
miss it, did you? Yeah,
didn't miss
exactly.
it,
Like,
no.
and it's as if like you've like cut off a little bit, and you're like, oh, that's actually a bit smoother now.
Yeah.
That actually works a bit better. So, it was fine to cut that. We lost a few little tiny bits and bobs here and there, but like it was all kind of to the film's betterment, I think, entirely.
Definitely.
I have no ego with that kind of thing. I love getting people's opinions on it, and if enough people say something, or like if they say it strong-willed enough, and I like what they're saying, it's like, damn, good. I'm glad I hadn't even thought of that. Like I know a moment that I really credit you for. Is the very, very ending. Like it's this very dramatic monologue, and it's like maybe even a bit too dramatic for what it is. Like it's nice, but it's like it's pretty like, I will go and I will solve everything.
Yeah. So
and then
it
I
needed
liked-
a nice comedy ending.
Right. We needed something, and originally I'd written that maybe he could like blow a raspberry down the like some kind of, and then just like walk off.
Yeah.
And I remember you just saying like, what if he just like bumped into the guy who was just coming off stage, and I was like,
I do like that. I think that's my
fucking
favourite
funny.
bit.
Yeah, same. At the end of the day, he's still like the third support act for this little comedy thing, and like even if
Yeah.
he's come to this grandiose revelation, like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh,
Calm
sorry.
down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that was like a fun diffusing. What's really funny as well is I'd written that bit in, and then when we came to shoot it, I was like, wait, I haven't cast that person. Like I don't know who's doing that.
Who is it? Is
It's
it?
Ash.
It's Ash,
It's
isn't it?
producer, our wonderful, lovely producer Ash. Because I didn't want to do it myself. I was like, I don't want this to be a self-insert.
Cringe.
Yeah, exactly. That
You're
was
like
exactly it.
Alfred. Alfredging.
Alfredging. I didn't want to Alfred
No,
Hitchcock it.
don't.
Yeah, I was just like, it's a bit grotesque. So he just very unknowingly was just like, fine, I'll come and do this bit then,
Yeah.
shall I? Have you got any ideas for future projects?
Wow.
What?
Really getting into travelogues. Kind of just want to travel.
Travel vlogging.
Yeah,
So
travel
next-
vlogging.
Where are you going to go?
Just around my local area and just meet interesting people,
Yeah.
find out how everybody else lives their lives and
Is
stuff like
this
that.
your next project?
Yes.
I'm really excited for
What's
that.
your next project?
Same, actually. I'm going to do the same thing.
You're not. No, you'll be in the background traveloguing as well.
Oh, there.
You'll have to go somewhere else.
alright,
Come on, you must have a film in the
works.
in the can. If
If
I just give you £1 million now,
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
go make a film. You're
Okay.
what you're writing, what you're gonna make it about.
I'm going to make Joker 3, and I'm going to try and beat them to Joker 2.
It's a big money idea.
That's my
Can I
pitch.
be the Joker?
Yeah.
Yes.
But we try and get it officially licensed by Warner
I'm gonna
Bros.
put a smile on your face.
That's my pitch. That's my future project.
That's my Joker. Laugh.
Oh, that's awful. Are you? This is what I want to ask. Are you gonna do more stand up? Maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Tempted.
Definitely. I mean, I was tempted to just nick the stuff from Bicycle
Hey,
and
do it.
just go and do that.
Do it on
Because
tour.
then I don't have to do any writing.
Right.
But you
I
might
would love to
have
see
found out.
more. And also, you made a sketch for the first time in a long time. A little
On
video
YouTube,
on
yeah.
YouTube.
So I've got to do something now because I've got an
Yeah.
8-month break until my next video
Right,
comes
right.
around.
You got time.
So I've definitely got
All
time.
right. I'm just
We
gonna,
should do it together. We could do
Yeah.
like a double act.
I would like that. We should make a dumb film. I want to I've brought you into enough Kieran shot cinematic stuff. Now I want to do one. I want to direct something with you that is like crab sticks branding. I want
So it needs to be shit.
really rubbish and poorly put together.
Right, not rubbish. It's a style.
Yeah, it's an
choice.
aesthetic choice. And also, you're in an episode of the Big Potato Games.
Yes, when's that out?
Lovely board games. Early December.
Okay.
So pretty soon. It's
In time
edited.
for Christmas.
Yeah. In fact, it's being colour graded today, so that's good fun. So you have that to look forward to. Thank you very much. Let's wrap it up, I guess.
Okay.
For the wonderful support.
It's been great.
Yeah, genuinely, it's been truly lovely. Thank you for watching. Watch it again. Watch it one more time. Just have it on in the background.
Just
get it on. Just loop it up. We need the money.
Sequel.
Yeah, it could be. We could turn it into a major series. Netflix, give us a ring. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Piss off.